Thank you very much. First, I'd like to, thank the organizers for inviting me to be here. I'm very excited to participate. This is my first time speaking at this DevCon, so I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much. I am going to share my screen. I do have a presentation. It's going to be a technical presentation. I was told that I'll be speaking to some developers and developer enthusiasts. And those of you that are developers, I hope this resonates for you. And those of you that are not, perhaps you'll learn a little bit about development and how development works. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Hopefully this will work without too much fuss. And I will start my presentation here. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, you're good to go.
Excellent, excellent. Well, again, thank you for having me on. My name is Medha Parlikar. I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Casper Labs. We're very proud to be founded in Casper, Wyoming. And the origins of our company name is our consensus protocol is known as Casper, the friendly ghost. For those of you that know a little bit about consensus protocols, the ghost stands for greediest, heaviest observed subtree. And we were founded on October 31st, 2018 in Casper, Wyoming. We chose Wyoming because of the wonderful favorable rules for blockchain companies. And so very, very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak. We founded Casper Labs to build a blockchain that will scale. My background is from the Web 2 world, software as a service or cloud. There's lots of different names for this, where I managed engineering organizations, both at small startups and large companies like Adobe and Avalara. And today I'm going to talk about the testing of smart contracts and the importance of testing in scaling out the adoption of blockchain. So with that, we'll dive right in. So learning about a new technology takes time, and the blockchain space is really confusing right now with lots of different projects, all vying for developer adoption, littered with new consensus protocols and languages and communities with tokens going to the moon. For the 26 million developers that are not yet working with blockchain technology, this space is pretty interesting. There are nice layer 1 protocols alone out there. So just imagine putting code on a public blockchain that can never change, and you get one shot to write a perfect smart contract in a brand new language on a system where you can't debug your code. It doesn't sound like a recipe for success. It's also not so funny when all of this affects people's wallets or bottom line revenue, and you certainly don't want to be that developer. The number one value that blockchain is supposed to bring is trust. This is why it's so terrific for multi-party transactions with no intermediaries. But how does one know that a given on-chain protocol is defect-free? I mean, these transactions are reversible, right? We know that software is prone to defects. How do we know that a given smart contract has been tested? Right now, we're in a phase of experimentation. We just wait and see. Some protocols have the money to get their software formally verified, which is really, really expensive and time consuming, and it just doesn't scale. All in all, getting started in blockchain today is no trivial matter. And this is just an example of some of the challenges that you're going to face when you embark upon learning about blockchain. So our mission is to scale the adoption of blockchain technology, to make it accessible for everyone. Let's dive into the role that testing plays in this mission. So to talk a little bit about how today's software is tested, it isn't tested manually. It's tested using computers. And here's a diagram that lays out what we call the continuous delivery process. This is a fairly generic but accurate representation of what is called a development pipeline. Now, in order to maintain a competitive advantage, for a technical company, DevOps is essential to its success. This is how software is produced at scale today. And I know this because my background is a technology leader in medium to large enterprise software development organizations, where I focused on delivering high quality software at scale fast. I've spent many decades managing technical teams in the role of lead quality, lead of program, or lead of engineering. And many times when I would join an organization and I would sit down with the CTO, the first problem I would hear is, we can't get a handle on the quality of our software. It's causing customer satisfaction issues, and it's costing us sales. Please fix it. And the first thing I would do is I would implement configuration management, continuous integration, and test automation. And I've participated in the implementations of these kinds of pipelines many, many times over. In fact, the best way to proceed is to set up these pipelines at the very beginning of the project and let them evolve over time. That seems like a lot to set up. Is it really worth it? Well, the efficiencies that come with DevOps are well documented and are almost necessary regardless of whether or not you're using the agile development process or not. If you're shipping firmware, it becomes even more critical because pushing updates out to firmware packages is extremely expensive. And you don't want to have mission critical software out there, for example, in an IV drip that has a bug. Implementing these kinds of pipelines also gets you tighter collaboration with your operations team, which gives you better uptime. And this is really important in a Web 2 environment. If your shopping cart goes offline, you're losing real money real fast. And automated testing is efficient and economical. And all of this gives you better code faster, which in turn will give you a competitive advantage and help you win in the market. In fact, DevOps is so important in software engineering that we have heard of companies investing over 6 months of their project timeline and many tens of thousands of dollars just to set this up for a blockchain project. Entire companies have been created just to solve the DevOps problem for blockchain. Books have been written. And it's clear that developers are wrestling with this problem, and they're doing this rather than building value using blockchain. And this entire process will not scale. Today is the easiest way is to start with an online tool that simulates the environment of the blockchain to build out your contracts. And these IDEs are really great to get started. They will let you deploy your smart contracts and test them out. But this really doesn't work when your contract is part of a larger architecture. Because if your application has a website or a mobile interface, you will be sending data to this on-chain contract. And you won't have any guarantees that bugs won't appear there. And more importantly, there isn't any way to integrate that ID into your operations pipeline along with the rest of your application. And here you can see, while there's multiple proprietary tools for blockchain development workflow, none of these will support your existing application pipeline. So what if I told you that you could build smart contracts with a workflow that integrates into your existing development operations processes, all of those that are used widely today, and you could set it all up yourself, and you don't need any new tools? So before you can consider even deploying your blockchain contracts, you got to build them first, right? And the space, again, is riddled with brand new cool programming languages and developer tools to help make smart contract authoring easier. But with these new languages and tools, you don't get the freedom to select the IDE and the workflows that you need. If you're used to using IntelliJ or CLion or Visual Studio, you can't necessarily use those with Solidity, and you can't run and test your contracts there. You might get code formatting, but that's all you're going to get. And this is all true for all of the blockchains that are out there in the space today. The newer and cooler the language, the less support with IDEs and runtimes you're going to see, and the longer and harder the path to delivering value using blockchain. We wanted to build a company and a blockchain that was open and accessible for everyone, which is why we chose to adopt Rust and WebAssembly for smart contract execution. We adapted our product to fully integrate into existing development processes. And because we chose this route, you can select any IDE you want to use to develop your smart contracts. And you can run your smart contracts using the Rust toolchain within that IDE and test them within the Casper virtual machine, all locally on your machine. Here you can see the C-line interface with an ERC20 contract example, and this was run on my computer. And at the bottom here, you can see that it's actually running the tests, and it ran 6 tests. These tests ran on my local box. And here you can see above here that I have these things called assertions on whether my contract was set up correctly. And what's really cool is I can even set up the starting state of my contract and what my contract expects before I even call it. So I can fully control the environment within which my contract runs. And I can make that environment as predictable or as chaotic as I wish. And then I can make sure that my contract is hardened against all of those conditions. I can assert whether the contract did what it was supposed to do. And I can dump out variables and return values to validate the way variables are being set within the contract. As a developer and product owner, you want to give your customers guarantees that you've tested your code. And from a best practices perspective, these tests need to be run on every single code change that is made in the system. So let's say you're like, that's really cool, Meta. I'm fine using the browser-based IDE. Sure, you can absolutely go ahead and use that. But in order to do the right thing, you still have to integrate your smart contract into your application. Let's talk about how this could work. We've talked about how your application can be delivered by the existing DevOps tools. With the protocols out there today, the blockchain tooling doesn't work with existing DevOps ecosystem. So it's going to be a one-off snap-on, and your contracts will be tested in a petri dish, a little bit disconnected from the rest of the system. So what are your options? Well, you can choose to push your entire development operations pipeline, that would be this entire thing you're looking at here, into a cloud system that provides blockchain DevOps. Now, you would have to figure out from a business perspective if that cloud-based system will work with your application, if it's strategic for your company to use that cloud-based system, and if you want to be married to that cloud-based system, and how are you going to possibly make a change and have the flexibility to go with whichever system you want in the future if pricing goes up or the cloud provider isn't continuing to give you the level of service that you want. The other option is you can run a full blockchain node in your pipeline. So you could take this piece here where we say integrate and deploy, and there's a local network. You can go ahead and stick that local network right in here in this continuous build section. And you can say, I'm just going to choose to run a local blockchain node. You're going to have to maintain that integration. You're going to have to maintain that blockchain node fully. And you're going to have to deal with all of that infrastructure, the cost for the server, and making sure that it's working properly right next to your build server for your continuous deployment process. Or you can choose to run eventually on a test net. When you do that, it's going to cost you. And it's going to cost you every time you run your contract, you're going to have to pay gas fees. All of these options are expensive and time consuming, and they still aren't really going to give you what you want. They aren't going to give you the flexibility and control over setting up the kind of technology infrastructure that you want. And rather than spending time building your business or your great idea, you're messing with infrastructure. And your pipeline's going to kind of look like this. You know, you're going to have your development operations and pipeline for your core application infrastructure that uses everything that's built best of world today. And then you're going to have this hitch. That's going to be your blockchain pieces, right? And it's not going to be very efficient or easy to maintain. And you're going to spend cycles managing these dependencies. And this is certainly not going to scale for you. So what is the option? Well, this is what your test configuration will look like with the Casper Lab Contracts Development Kit. This is 4 little lines. You're going to tell it it's going to be Rust. You're going to put a script in here, or you're going to call a make file. You add this little YAML file to your code repository, and you install Cargo Casper Labs on your build server, and you're done. And as you saw, the VM runs on my local laptop, so it will easily run on your build server. This will work with any of the instrumentation that is in the current DevOps ecosystem today. And you can choose to use Jenkins, Drone, or any CI instrumentation that you want. You can run your CI instrumentation in GitHub, in AWS, any cloud provider you want to, or in your own data center if that's what your business needs. And any DevOps professional can set this up, and it will integrate into your existing pipeline seamlessly. It's possible because we provide you the VM and the internal blockchain state to store, which will allow it to be a small runnable component that will run on any Linux machine. And you can build all of this right alongside, integrated with your application. We created this tool for our own purpose because we needed tooling to develop smart contracts with confidence. And now we're making this tool available to anyone that wants to build on Casper. You can verify your contract code locally, create integrations, tests for your entire application, and run them all in a single build system together. And we know that developers take great pride in the quality of their code, which is why we built these tools to help you be successful, whether you're writing a small prototype or a large application. And it's not realistic to expect that industries are going to throw out all the code that's been constructed over the past 20 years and start over to just use blockchain. It's much more likely that they will select very specific features in their product offerings for blockchain. Blockchain is expensive to use, and every single transaction is run 100 or even 1,000 times for security. So only key portions of existing code will be candidates for blockchain. All of this code ships via DevOps pipelines today, and disruption to those pipelines will result in production bugs, customer service issues, and ultimately will affect revenues. And by providing a small portable VM and blockchain state that you can control, it's possible to drop blockchain directly into your application seamlessly. Both the creation process for smart contracts and the delivery process fit right in. And this is one of the key ways in which we will scale the adoption of blockchain, by integrating blockchain into the development operations that are already in place so that developers can iterate rapidly on the technology in ways they've already done so for decades. And you don't need to go to a blockchain coding camp to get started because there's no new tools to ramp on. If you choose to run a full node, our monitoring tools work with industry standard tooling for production operations teams. We built this with foresight to scale and technology, value, and most importantly, trust. And there isn't anything custom that's required. So if you want to run a node, your operations team will know exactly how to interface with that node. We built this because this is what we believe you need if your big idea is going to win. You need this for your product delivery to be fast and nimble so you can respond rapidly to what your business needs. Blockchains present the opportunity to streamline operations across many industries by adding a layer of trust and guarantees in multi-party transactions. We want to scale this opportunity for everyone, including the many millions of developers that have yet to explore blockchain. Our developer workflows will be familiar and support you in your success. So we invite you to participate in the revolution with us, with our future-proof foundation, which will enable your great idea to grow and evolve. Thank you very much for your time and attention.